Hey, hello, Calvary family. I know it's been a long time since I've posted a video, but I'm looking at the new season that's coming up upon us. Fall, right? Fall's coming up quickly. September begins a new cycle for the church. Really, September's more of a new year for us as a church than New Year's is because September sets up these new rhythms, and new rhythms are formed in a lot of people's lives. Summertime, we can be like all over the place. I mean, you know how it is. But then when September comes, we start settling in a little bit and we get into some new rhythms or some of the old rhythms that we forgot in the summertime. We start picking up again and doing that. And so for me, I'm just looking at time and how I'm using my time and all of that and the mission of the church, which is, of course, to disciple and to equip followers of Jesus. And I'm wondering if this platform might be beneficial for us all to that end. And so, if this, like posting videos, doing devos and stuff, is beneficial to you and you want to see it happen like on a regular basis once a week or something, please do this for me. Thumbs up if you're on YouTube, like it, share it, whatever, on other platforms, or just comment on it. I just want to get a feel if this is something that you guys see as beneficial. So anyway, my plan for these posts, if we do them, is to post something from my readings that I'm doing every week. So currently, right now, I'm reading through the Bible in a year. I do like 4 chapters a day. I 1 day a week I'm not reading. I have Sunday off, but 4 chapters a day for all the other days. And my thought is, out of those readings, taking something, grabbing onto it and doing a devo on somewheres in there. So currently, I'm in the book of Numbers. And so I'm going to share with you something out of Numbers. Israel in Numbers has been redeemed, right? God delivered them out of Egypt where they were in slavery. Exodus is all about that deliverance. Exodus brings us to Mount Sinai where God meets with Israel and Moses up on that mountain or from that mountain. And so Exodus ends at Mount Sinai. Numbers picks up, and you got Leviticus in there that gives us instructions and approaches to God, the way to approach God. And then Numbers begins, and it takes us from Mount Sinai to the promised land. And we see some of the failures and all of that of them entering into the promised land and all. So in Numbers chapter 11, Numbers 11, Israel has begun their movement now from Sinai now towards the promised land. Okay, and so this is what happened. I'm going to pick up in Numbers 11, verse 4. It says, "Now the mixed multitude among them yielded to intense craving, so that the children of Israel also wept again and said, 'Who will give us meat to eat?'" So mixed multitude is some of the Egyptians that came out of Egypt with Israel in the Exodus. God wants to be known by all people. And so some believed and they came with Israel. But the walk with God isn't always easy. So they began to complain, and in fact, it says that they yielded to intense cravings, or they lusted exceedingly, or they craved exceedingly intense cravings for meat. And it goes on. It says, verse 5. "We remember," this is what they said, and of course, all Israel's weeping too with them. It says, "We remember the fish we used to eat freely in Egypt, and the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlics. But now our whole being is dried up, and there's nothing for us except this manna before our eyes." The word manna, guys, it means what is it? That's literally how it translates. What is it? God told Israel back in Exodus that he was going to provide for them. And it tells us specifically how God provided for them. He provided bread from heaven. That's what it's called, from God. God said it's bread from heaven. And when Israel went out and they saw it, they looked at it and they said, "What is it?" Right? And so what name stuck? Bread from heaven, or what is it? Uh, it actually tells us a lot about what's going on in the heart, doesn't it? Because we could do the same thing, right? Call it manna. What is it? Versus this is God's provision. Anyway, they're complaining. They're complaining. Verse 7, and it says, the manna, it tells us the description of the manna. It says it was like coriander seed, and its color was like bdellium. The people went out and gathered it and ground it in millstones or beat it with mortar and cooked it in pans and made cakes from it, and its taste was like the taste of pastry prepared with oil. So we're told about the bread from heaven, the manna, about what it looks like and what it tastes like. And this is God's provision for them. It says it looked like bdellium. Now, we don't know what that is, but if you do a search on bdellium, you'll see it's only used one other time in the Bible. And that's back in the garden, before the fall. And so, there's a hint here, and you see this throughout the scripture. There's all these hints of God's heart and God's desire for people and being in fellowship with him back like in the garden. And so this is just a hint of it with what it looked like. And then it tells us what it tasted like. It tasted like pastry. So it wasn't like, God provided lima beans or boiled okra from heaven and said, don't complain about it. It was like tasty, and it was good. It was pleasant. Which, really, would you expect anything less from a good and loving God? In verse 10, he goes on and it says, and then Moses heard the people weeping throughout their families, everyone at the door of his tent, and the anger of the Lord was greatly aroused, and Moses was also displeased. Everybody's weeping at their tent. They're lusting exceedingly, right, or complaining that they want meat or whatever. They're at their tents weeping, all these families. And so their complaints, this thing that's going on in their hearts, their complaints turned into grumbling. Their grumbling turned into murmuring. Murmuring turned into now weeping. It's just this whole progression. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, it tells us about Israel. God tells us about Israel. In fact, the whole chapter, really, I'm just going to take out little portions of it. You go read it later. Verse 6, it says this, now these things, talking about Israel, these things became our example to the intent that we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted, Israel lusted. Verse 9, and also that we would not tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed by serpents. Verse 10, nor that we would complain, as some of them also complained and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now these things happened to them, to Israel, as examples, that they were written for our admonition, our encouragement, our exhortation, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. So there are examples to learn from. So going back to Numbers, and they're complaining over this hardship and all. Look, I don't want to give the impression that life was easy for them. It was. And God was providing for them. Absolutely. He's providing for you too, right? God was with them. That was the whole entire point. God is with them. Isn't that the whole entire point of the New Testament too? You as a follower of Jesus, isn't that, lo, I'm with you even to the end of the age, right? I'm not going to abandon you. But, but life can get hard. And what traveling in the desert, in the desert wilderness, I'm sure it was really tough. See, but the problem is they forgot who God is in the hardship, instead of remembering who he is in the midst of the hardship. Why are they complaining? Why are they lusting exceedingly? Why are they have all these earnest cravings for something that they don't have? Why? Why are they weeping? Because life started to take the place of God for them. And life was hard. And so God is hard in their minds. And so in hardship, they took the way that they used to see the world, right? They were enslaved to Pharaoh and to Egypt and all that, and they started to project that right upon God. And now God doesn't care. Why would we be in a situation if God cared? God's out to get us. God's holy. Yeah, and what holiness means is he's mean. And instead of, no, God's bringing us into the promised land, and life might be hard right now, but he's good, and he's provided for us thus far, and he will be faithful to the end. Listen, my encouragement to you is do what Israel should have done. Lifted up their eyes. Look, life gets tough, and it does. You could be in a difficult situation, stressful situation, circumstance, whatever. You can just press through to get to the other side. In America, we have that insulation a lot of times. You can do that. You can grit your teeth and just endure it. God has a way better plan. He's with you. He cares for you. He's provided for you, and he knows exactly where you are. Even if you're stuck in traffic, the traffic didn't take him by surprise. Just in case you didn't know that, didn't take him by surprise. The toughest of circumstances didn't take him by surprise. He knows, and he's still sovereign. He's still in control. Don't live as if he wasn't. Look, your situation, your circumstance may not be good, but God is. And God knows how to get us into all that he's promised. That circumstance, that situation, it's part of the journey. Don't miss God in the midst of it. Even in traffic, he has a plan, and his plans are good for you and me. Look, I know. I skipped ahead. I read the end. Okay, it's good. It's real good. But let me leave you with a prayer that God told Israel they were to speak over each other. It's from Numbers 6, verse 24, and I'll speak it over you. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And this is what God said about it. And so you shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless you. And he will. Love you all. Hey, see you Sunday. We're going to be talking about receiving good gifts from God. It's needed. It's good. So I'll see you Sunday, 9 and 11.